Hey there, Tommy from the Run Testers with another first run review. In this video, I'm going to be looking at the Altra Timp 4 trail shoe. Let's take a look. The Altra Timp 4 costs £140 or $160, weighs in at 300 grams or 10.6 ounces for men in a size 8. The drop is 0 millimeters. The Altra Timp 4 is a zero-drop trail shoe designed to offer a comfortable, cushioned ride for a variety of sessions. The shoe sees an updated stack of Altra EGO MAX to offer even more cushioning than the previous version, and a healthy layer of Maxtrac outsole rubber to provide a good level of grip and protection across a range of trail surfaces. As well as the natural drop, the Timp 4 includes grooves in the midsole to provide a better level of flexibility and Altra's wide toe box to allow the toes to splay comfortably. The shoe also features drainage holes in the forefoot to remove excess water, gator connective elements, a slightly reinforced toe cap, and a moderate level of cushioning in the tongue and around the ankle collar. Okay, so the fit for me in the Altra Timp 4, this is an 8 in the UK, I'm an 8 in the UK. I found it to be a very comfortable shoe. Altra is well known for having a roomier toe box, definitely got a roomier toe box, but I didn't find it was too big for my the length of my foot. It felt very comfortable. The upper is pretty comfortable. I would say that the midsection of the shoe is a little bit more restrictive than I would have expected from an Altra shoe, but it felt absolutely fine for me. I've got a fairly average width foot, so I didn't have any issues with it at all. But if you do have a wide foot, you might want to take that into consideration. Other than that, I found it to be very comfortable. There's plenty of padding around the ankle collar, and the upper feels quite structured and comfortable to wear. So I would stick to my size in the Altra Timp 4. So I have just been out to Chamonix for the UTMB, and I used that as an opportunity to test out the Altra Timp 4 while I was over there. I've actually done 3 runs in this shoe so far. One of them was a fairly short 5k run, which was mainly on road and gravel. The next run I did was a 10-mile run, which was a mixture of road and gravel. And I've recently, since I've come back, I've done some running on some trails around here, and I did about 10k in the shoe. And it's a good job that I did, because I don't know a lot about Altra shoes, and the feel of them is not really what I'm used to. I've so far tested the Outroad 2. I didn't mind that shoe, but it wasn't really for me. I'm not really used to zero drop shoes, and the Outroad 2 was a little bit firm for me for the sort of running that I like. The reason that I picked up the Timp 4 is that there's quite a lot more cushioning in it. It's got this EGO MAX midsole cushioning, 29 millimeters drop across the whole shoe, and it's definitely a lot softer than what I experienced in the Outroad 2. So in those runs that I did on it, what I found is that the Timp 4 is more my sort of shoe. That midsole foam that's in it is definitely a lot softer and more suited to my style of running. What I felt on the road sections is that it delivers pretty well. It's pretty versatile when you're running on road and when you're running on trails. For me, it's quite a comfortable shoe to run in on the road, but I did notice the lack of drops, something that I'm definitely not used to when running on the road. But it was comfortable, and after doing 10 miles in it, it felt absolutely fine. But I would say that it's an experience that I think you probably have to get used to. If you've never tried zero drop shoes before, it takes a bit of time to get used to how they feel, but the big stack of cushioning in the Timp 4 does make it easier to get used to that zero drop. When I headed onto the harder gravel sections and rocky sections of the trails that I was doing, it delivered very well. It feels like a very comfortable shoe to wear. It's not necessarily the most versatile shoe for me. I definitely wouldn't run very fast in this shoe. That might be partly to do with the fact that I'm not that used to the zero drop shoe, but also it does feel like it's not the lightest shoe in the world, it's not the heaviest shoe in the world, it's fairly balanced, but I would say that I couldn't feel like I could really pick up the pace in it, but it's very comfortable over my more comfortable pace, which is around 5 minutes to 5 minute 20 kilometers, which is sort of my easy pace or my long run pace, and it did very well at that. The outsole on the shoe is quite minimal in comparison. It's not very aggressive in comparison to some of the trail shoes, especially around the forefoot. There's not really any lugs or aggressive lugs on the forefoot. So I think it's a shoe that's really not designed for heavily technical terrain. What I was running on was quite gravelly. There were some rocky sections, and I did do some inclines and declines on it. It felt absolutely fine. There was no rain, there was no wet surfaces that I was running on, so I haven't been able to test it on that sort of surface yet. But on that dry terrain, it was very good. I didn't feel like I had any issues at all with the grip. Felt very stable, felt very secure on the ground, and didn't have any issues at all. The one thing I would say though is it doesn't have a rock plate in it, and that midsole foam, because it's quite a bit softer, there were points where I did hit quite a big rock, and I could feel it under my feet. Not massively, I still felt like the shoe was protecting my foot, but for the more technical terrain where it can get quite rocky, pointy bits of rock and things like that, there's not a lot of protection in the midsole apart from the midsole foam itself. I did find that the upper was very comfortable. It was very hot when I was out in Chamonix doing my run. I didn't have any issues with breathability of this shoe at all. It felt absolutely fine. The experience of the ride in this shoe, so what I would say about it is that even though it's got a lot of cushioning in it, there is obviously no drop in it, but also there's not really any propulsion in it. It's not really doing anything that moves you forward. So it's a very natural feeling shoe, which if you're looking for an Altra shoe, that's probably what you're looking for. So that's a good thing. The combination of that with the toe splay in the forefoot does make it feel like you are running in a shoe that is really allowing you to run in the way that you want. It doesn't feel like it's doing anything to move your foot forward. It doesn't feel aggressive in any way. So it definitely feels like a shoe that if you want a natural feel, but you don't want to go fully barefoot or anything like that, it's a nice balance of that, and it definitely feels like when you're touching the ground, you really have a good feel of the ground. It's nice when you're sort of dipping around outcrops and things like that, where you want to have a bit of control over the ground and you want to feel what's happening. Other things I would say about it, does have a protective layer on the forefoot of the shoe. I didn't really get into any situations where that was necessary. I didn't really need to use that. It doesn't feel particularly thick, so I doubt it would be massively protective, but it'll probably help you a bit if you're sort of running around areas where there's little bits of rock pointing out and things like that. But it's not the most formidable toe protection that you're going to find on a trail shoe. It has drainage holes in it. I didn't get to test those out. It was completely dry when I was out on the trail. And the other thing which is quite nice about Altra shoes is they've got this Velcro section at the back and this loop at the front of the lacing system, and that's for attaching gators. Definitely didn't use those over the testing that I've done in them, but it's there if you need it. So overall, very comfortable, enjoyable run. Not one that I'm particularly used to, so it's a little bit of an alien feel to me. I'm not used to that natural feel. I'm normally used to wearing something with a bit of a drop that sort of pops you forward a bit, or with a bit of a rocker, but I did warm to these shoes, and the cushioning was a massive factor in that. So my early verdict on the Altra Timp 4 is that it's a shoe that I wouldn't necessarily normally look at, and it's very rarely that I've used zero drop shoes apart from barefoot shoes or minimal shoes, and I really don't like those. They don't work well for me. I like a lot of cushioning, so I've sort of avoided barefoot shoes or zero drop shoes, whereas the Timp 4, because it has a lot of cushioning, it does sort of give you an access point if you want to have a more natural ride, if you want that toe splay, which is a really nice feature. It feels really comfortable on your feet when you can actually move your toes around, and it's not something I experience in a lot of shoes. If you want that and you still want a ride that is slightly similar to a more cushioned shoe, it's a nice option, and definitely one that you should have a look at if you're really after that sort of natural feel, but you don't want to go the whole hog and go for a minimal shoe. I think it's good for that. It's comfortable. I had no issues at all. 10-mile run in it out of the box, and it felt absolutely fine. So for me, it's pretty successful first run in the shoe, and I'm looking forward to testing it out in some different conditions. Now I'm back in the UK, I'll take it out over the downs and see how it delivers on inevitably wetter ground over the various trails that are out on the downs. But yeah, pretty successful first run for me in the Altra Timp 4. That's it from me on this first run review of the Altra Timp 4. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click that little bell, and check the channel out for all the other videos we've got. And don't forget that if you go into the caption below, you can find a link to our podcast, which comes out at the end of each month. Thanks a lot for watching. Catch you next time.